What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Reviews by Ryan channel. If this is your first time stopping by, a big welcome to you. And for any of you that have supported and watched any or all of my reactions since I started this channel in April, a very big thank you and welcome back. It is time to go ahead and announce my top 10. I told you guys that I would be making this video and that it would be the last video before my hiatus, and that time has come with the wrap up of Love Live Superstar. That does conclude all 21 shows that I was watching during the summer 2022 season, and boy oh boy was it an absolute treat. To be fair, a vast majority of all the shows I watched passed with at least a 7. And so, you know, this is a testament to the fact you can't knock a season until the shows actually come out. There were a number of shows that I ended up watching this season that I didn't assume would be as great as they ended up being. But, you know, I got to give a lot of accolades coming off of the spring season. There was obviously a lot of great shows that came out in the spring, and obviously my number one show of the entire anime year so far came out in the winter. So, you know, you didn't really know where you were going to get this summer. Obviously, there was one show that I knew without a doubt was going to be an incredibly satisfactory show, and that was the Made in Abyss series. But even beyond that, there were shows like Lycoris Recoil and Call of the Night, shows that I didn't initially think were going to rank or be as high, that actually ended up being some of my most enjoyed shows. And then you had other shows like the Yakuza Babysitting one that was even crazier. So I gotta say, this was a great season of anime. This was one of the largest amounts of animes I've watched in a single season at 21. This is actually the most, and I am looking forward to announcing what my top 10 is and then showing you my full list. Again, as a reminder, any ratings that I give shows is my ratings and my ratings alone and are not influenced upon me by any exterior party, and you should take any rating that I give with a grain of salt, understanding that I am only one anime reactor and one anime watcher in the great anime watching world. So before I do share my top 10, I did want to take a quick moment to put up on the screen the comparisons of the Anime Corner final season ratings along with the week 11 advantage ratings. Unfortunately, I'm getting this video out before the final season awards are given out by Anime Trending, but I do anticipate that for Anime Trending it's going to be pretty similar in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to put those up for just a moment to show how your favorite shows did and what ended up being top 10 in each of those polls. So I do hope your shows did make the top 10. If any of your favorites were on those lists, a big congratulations. And if your show did not make the top 10 of any of the popularity polls, I do still hope you enjoyed whatever show it was that you watched this season. Obviously, we saw this trend for many weeks. Lycoris Recoil particularly, which no one could have assumed was going to be at the top for as long as it was, absolutely reigned supreme in an Anime Corner. Lycoris Recoil won by an absolutely insurmountable margin, all over 11% of the collective votes. So a very big congratulations to A1 Pictures and all the voice actors and production team that was responsible behind that. We did also see the success of Call of the Night and Classroom of the Elite in the Anime Corner polls, and then in the Anime Trending ones as they wrapped up the final week advantage. We did see Lycoris in second, Call of the Night in first, and one of my favorite shows that showed up in 3 on that one, Made in Abyss. So again, very big congratulations congratulations. We had a really strong season, and I hope you all enjoyed all of the shows, and I hope that all of your shows made the top 10 in either respectable poll. So, with that said, it's time to talk about how does my ratings compare up there with the popularity ratings of the collective community. And while some shows are definitely going to be similar and will be on the top 10 of my poll, which were in the top 10 of the popularity, there is a few that are in places that either weren't as high, weren't as low, or weren't on the list at all, or may not have even been watched to start with. So without ado, I'm going to go ahead and start from bottom to top, starting with my number 10. Coming in right at number 10, My Stepmom's Daughter Is My Ex, getting a collective score of 8.5 out of 10. You know, My Stepmom's Daughter Is My Ex was really a show that I did not anticipate liking even remotely as much as I did, but also I was willing to give a chance to. Higehiro was another one that came out that was a little similar, but obviously a considerably big difference in the age bracket, but was a show that I didn't think was going to be the way it was, and it ended up being really well put together. There were really wholesome moments and great characters that were trying to give a good sense of direction. Well, with My Stepmom's Daughter Is My Ex, you know, you'll look at that title and you'll be like, well, what the hell, Ryan? Why would you watch a show like this? But it was really freaking wholesome. Watching, you know, the growth and maturity between Yume and Mizuto as they dealt with these challenges that they had in their middle school relationship while trying to get used to the new sets of circumstances that they are faced with. It honestly ended up being a pretty great journey with great side characters. Obviously, Higashiro ended up being my favorite character of the whole series, who was a side character that those who watched know ended up really being up there as far as likability is concerned. And ultimately, I feel that all the characters in the show were really enjoyable to watch, and it was great watching the growth all the way up to the end. So in my personal opinion, I do believe that this should be on my list, and it did come in right at the bottom at number 10. And number 9, The Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting, also being awarded an 8.5 out of 10. Now, I have to thank my friend because I did watch snippets of the first episode, but I actually didn't start watching that show until later in the season, later in its run. But I had a good friend who was watching it and was very highly motivating about it and was really promoting it. And when I watched it, I gotta say, for a show about Yakuza and babysitting, I mean, we ended up getting a really wholesome thing between Yaika and Kirishima. It was really nice getting to see the dynamics from the environment that Kirishima used to be in to where he's at now, getting to see him put in charge of his family's daughters, pretty much her entire safety, and then watching how much this little girl, Yaika, brought out the very best in him, helped him have a different perception on his life as a Yakuza member, as his life in this family, and over his own life in existence. And while we definitely had some dark moments with the show that transpired closer to the end, I feel that it was really well done, and honestly, sorry about that. It would have gotten a little higher from me if it wasn't for the fact that the main antagonist character, I don't really know where he was trying to go and really what his sole purpose was in the grand scheme of things with the show. But putting that aside, it was a really wholesome show, a lot of hilarious moments, and it was my number 9 show of this summer season. Coming in at number 8, and this was an even more late edition than the number 9 one was, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. So, you know, I don't even know what really got me to actually watch that show. I think that I had a little bit of dead time a couple of weeks ago. So, and I know that there have been a lot of glowing reviews, particularly from my overseas friends and overseas watchers about this. And I didn't play Cyberpunk 2077, so I don't have a great attachment to the Cyberpunk series. But I have to tell you, I could not have made a better decision than picking this up and watching it on Netflix. It was an absolute treat to watch. Watching the relationship and the dynamics between David and Lucy and the tragedy that ended up befalling them, ultimately leading to the bittersweet conclusion that we had in the sci-fi futuristic thriller that we had. It was really a blast to see. It was a blast to see as you know, David had to come up from the environment that he was to try to survive in the world, and also having to live and trying to make it after the untimely passing of his mother, of his parent, who had been trying everything to make sure he had a better life, and then seeing this girl Lucy, who just wanted to go to the moon and didn't want anything to do with this cyber runner, with this edge runner life. So, it was really great. Maine, Rebecca, everyone who was part of this production was really well put together. I thought their characters were really great to see on screen, and it ultimately was really dynamic and engaging. And the only reason why I ended up having to give Cyberpunk Edge Runners an 8 out of 10 and not a near perfect score had everything to do with the fact that I just needed more time. I wanted more of filling in Maine's backstory. I wanted a lot more of Rebecca. I wanted more of Lucy, and everything that led to her getting to the point that she was now. And even though we got a good amount with David, I feel like it was a show that it just was cut 2 or 3 episodes too short. And if it had just that little bit of extra boost to the story, it definitely could have catapulted the show over a 9 or potentially close to a 10. Regardless, I don't want you to get too confused with the 8 out of 10, because regardless of me giving it an 8 out of 10, I gave it that just based off of, how my ratings ended up lining up in the 4 categories. But that does not exempt or suddenly negate the fact it was a hell of a fun show to watch. It was definitely one of my top 10 shows to watch this summer season, and it did come in 8th place with an 8 out of 10. Shinepost is my number 7 most enjoyed anime. And, for those who just saw my previous reaction on Love Live, you will know that, unfortunately, from an Idol standpoint, I was let down a bit this season with the 2nd season of Superstar, but I am very glad to say that there was another Idol show I was watching this season that made up for all of the issues that I had with Superstar, and that show was called Shinepost. For those of you that may or may not know, Shinepost is actually still in production, and I believe at the time of this recording, the 11th episode has come out, and the 12th episode, which is the finale episode, will be out next week. So obviously, I am prematurely putting this in my number 7 spot, but it is for a reason. One of the biggest things as I've continued down my watching of Idol shows is wanting to have more realism with the genre. We've had obviously all the fluff and all the rainbows and great moments and being able to resolve conflicts simply and being able to have pretty much automatic wins in competitions and shows and this and that. And while that's fine and all, we all know that in real life, the idol world doesn't exactly work that way. Particularly with the underground, comparing the underground to who actually makes it to the top, which of course the top pedestal when it comes to the idol world now is Love Live. Most people who start in the underground never make it to where they're supposed to be. And unfortunately, as the girls of Shinepost had to learn, they had a long, long road ahead of them prior to to our main guy who's serving as their manager, who's helping guide them to an optimal path that they want to achieve while also not coddling them either. And so what I have really liked about Shinepost as an idol show is, of course, as always, the girls are lovable, and this tends to be a case with many idol shows I watch, but I really feel a particularly close connection to several of the characters here, especially Kyoka, who is my favorite of the 5 main girls with Tings. I wish I had been reacting to it because I actually was really sobbing like a little baby with the whole Kyoka segment that happened. And we have really gotten to watch this group come up from being nobodies to actually having a chance to be somebody. We've gotten really incredible vocals. I'm really happy with the visual elements of this. The story is really enjoyable. And the only gripes that have happened with the season actually have nothing to do with the show itself, but with the production woes that they had due to COVID. So what I probably will end up doing is I'll probably end up rewatching the entire season once the 12th episode releases, since we did have a bit of breakup here and there with the release of the episodes. But regardless of that, I do believe Shinepost was an incredibly strong idol show this season. It was my favorite idol show that I watched this season, and it was probably one of my strongest idol shows I've watched this year, and I do believe that it has earned a 9 out of 10, coming in my 7th spot on my list. So if you are big to shows that are more realistic when it comes to the idol elements, and that, you know, not everything is going to be handed to you, and that you really are going to kind of have to work to get the results that you want, definitely give Shinepost a thing. The girls are cute as hell. They have wonderful dances. They're incredibly dynamic. The music is wonderful, and I think that you will all really enjoy it, particularly for my idol loving watchers. So with that said, coming in number 6 on my list is Classroom of the Elite Season 2, which I gave a collective score of an 8.5 out of 10 to. I think this is also important to let you know that even though a show may get a higher score, in some cases that does not entirely mean that it will be higher, and vice versa. It does not entirely mean it will be lower, but has everything to do with enjoyment factor. And Classroom of the Elite, even though it got a slightly lower score than I gave Shinepost, it is important to say I really had a blast with Classroom of the Elite second season. The second half of the season really picked up things with Aya Kanoji's dad showing up, with getting to put Kushida in her place, with watching Ruin-Space get relocated in various different places, and just watching everything really come together as Aya Kanoji has to go through this, getting his class to the very top. We also, of course, had the amazing moments that transpired between Kei and Aya Kanoji, and the growth that I felt we went through with Kei was something I did not expect. I didn't really like her character in the first season, but this second season, she really came through in a really big way, and she showed her absolute dedication and loyalty when she was going through the waterboarding incident. I really love the dynamic and elements, and even though, yes, there were issues in the first half of the season with the visuals, particularly with the whole running scene that happened, and also there were, you know, a little bit of slow moments here and there with the story. The second half completely catapulted this show to a very high level, which it kept until the very end. And I really just left this season just wanting so much more and seeing what's going to happen, especially now that Alisu has made her move, and now she's made her declaration against burying our boy Aya Kanoji. So I really do think it was an enjoyable story, a very enjoyable second season, and one of the few second seasons this season that actually did good, because it was another show that also had a very well anticipated second season I'll talk about in a short that did not do so good. But alas, Classroom of the Elite really executed what it meant to do. It got an 8.5 out of 10 for me, and I felt it was strong enough to get in the 6th spot of my top 10 list. Now, a show that was not originally on my list and was recommended to me by another good friend locally, my number 5 most enjoyed show, Call of the Night. Wow. There probably wasn't a more aesthetically pleasing show this season than Call of the Night. It was absolutely beautiful watching this show on screen. Creepy Nuts knocked the music out of the park. Phenomenal music, phenomenal soundtrack, phenomenal aesthetics, phenomenal colors, and overall, a really interesting story and another twist on vampire-based stories. Watching Ko explore, you know, what it's like at night as a middle schooler, as a young adolescent, and then watching Nazuna have to kind of figure her life out, despite the fact she obviously in vampire, even in, you know, real age, she's a little older, but in vampire years, she's also very similar in a maturity aspect as Ko was. And we really got to watch the dynamic between Ko and Nazuna as they explored each other, as they explored the nightlife and the nighttime and all the beauty and not beauty that exists in it. And then, of course, realizing that everyone is maturing in a way, and that there is a lot of unknowns in an environment like this, and the basic principle that no matter how many times we watch vampire-based series or shows, there is still so much that you don't truly understand about vampires as a whole. And that is something that was really hit at the tail end of this show, and something that really that was really engaging to me, and it's something that I really enjoyed seeing throughout this story. So this was a really well put together show. It was definitely top tier for this season, and I did award it a 9 out of 10 on the height of what was not the most complicated story, but an engaging story enough, and then just an absolutely beautiful environment with stunning music. Just a great show to watch. I had a blast watching this show. show, and I cannot wait to see more in a hopeful second season. In number 4, and this is one that has always been hit and miss since its release, was DanMachi Season 4, The First Cur. Now, I have expressed this a little bit in other reactions that I did throughout the season, that DanMachi has had a very hit and miss thing with me as a whole. You know, DanMachi is a series that at one point can be at a very big high with the dungeon exploring and the dynamics and chemistry that Bell is trying to build with both his familia and others, and then it can have lows like what happened in season 2. But this first cur of the 4th season was anything but lacking. This was an absolutely superb cur. I think it really established the root of what this show is supposed to be around with the dungeon exploring, and all the characters were really well animated, were really well portrayed story-wise. Again, there was one that I didn't even really like. That was, our girl from season 2, and now I really like her. So it's just one of those things that what a difference a good story with a focused direction can make. This was a really, really well put together season. And so far, even though we have a whole nother cur to go, the music was stunning. The visuals were stunning. The animation was great. And obviously now that the Great Calamity has started, we know that things are going straight to hell now. And I am absolutely pumped and cannot wait. It was definitely a top tier show for me this summer season, and it has been awarded a 9 out of 10, coming into my number 4 spot. So, before we talk about my top 3, I do want to take a quick moment to talk about honorable mentions, and there are 2 honorable mentions that I want to recognize this season. One for a very high reason, a very good reason, and another for the exact opposite of good. So, for the high reason, there is a show that was bumped off of my top 10 primarily because of Cyberpunk, but you will see when I post up all my 21 that I will also put my anime corner top 10, and they didn't have Cyberpunk Edge Runners on it. So instead, I did fill in the part that got right knocked out up to the number 10 spot there, and you will see that it is a show called Prima Doll, the sci-fi post-war doll show that came out, and this was honestly a lot better of a show than I expected. These type of shows, first off, it was a show by Visual Kei, so you already know anything that has to do with Kei is going to be absolutely depressing beyond measure. People are going to die, people aren't going to make it, and you'll probably be sobbing in tears at the end. While I wasn't fully sobbing, I will say that watching this journey of these dolls come up through a post-war environment, trying to find their own purposes in this new environment where war is not happening, and also trying to shake off what they were used to, what they were designed and made for. These beings that actually had hearts and emotions and passion. And seeing how everything fell apart at the end when our girl, who deserved so much better, had to basically give up everything in order to stop once and for all the rampage that was created by her other me. And I gotta tell you guys, Prima Doll was a really great show to watch that had a lot of sad moments at the end of it, ultimately with our main character unfortunately having to completely reset and lose her memories because her motherboard got fried. It was a really well put together show. I really enjoyed watching it. It was not a perfect show. Obviously, there were plenty of plot holes that were here and there, but I feel that for what it was trying to execute, it was executed really well. And I really would encourage you guys, if you are interested in these type of shows where it's dealing with mechanical dolls who have emotions, have a heart, have feelings, trying to make it in an environment other than what they were created for, definitely give this show a watch. It was definitely a good watch, and I did give it an 8 out of 10. And so depending on if you classify Cyberpunk as a show that should be in an anime rating award, you will either keep Prima at 11 or you will bump it up to 10, which is why it is on my anime corner list. So that is the positive honorable mention that I wanted to give. Now I want to give another honorable mention for the exact opposite reasons. I want to give an honorable mention for how epically catastrophic this second season to this most anticipated show, one of the most anticipated shows of the summer season, ended up being. And I'm pretty confident you guys know what I'm talking about. That's right, I'm talking about the second season of The Devil is a Part-Timer. I don't even know if it just is the fact that The Devil is a Part-Timer had so much writing on it, or if there were just so many other shows that it just didn't feel or match the same from a story standpoint. And, when I thought about it, at first I thought about it, I was like, you know what, maybe I was just critical because there were just so many other good shows I watched. I wasn't really willing to, I was holding the show too critically. But then I watched it a second time, and I realized this was just a bad season. It was a really, really bad season. Nothing good really came of this season. And we ended up in far more confusion about what the hell is happening, between the evil side, our demons, and then finding out what's happening with Emmy and her side of things, from a holy side of things. And the story just really just went off key really quickly. The animation was horrible. It's like my friend said, at no point was the animation to The Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2, was it good? It had decent moments, but it was never really good. The character models, the fight sequences, the jokes, everything. It felt lazy, and it was lazy. And just because there was a lot of anticipation riding around this show does not mean it should be recognized for anything really good. And I want to be one to say that The Devil is a Part-Timer, out of the 21 shows I watched this season, it was the worst show I watched. I gave it the lowest rating out of everything, right at a 5 out of 10. I won't put it any lower because Chio is still my favorite girl, and obviously there were definitely some very interesting revelations with the story at the end that I was intrigued enough about. But it was not good. And there were many times that it was just outright awful. And I know, guys, that, it got a season 3 announced. The viewership was obviously high enough that they automatically made that declaration. But I do not want that season 3 being announced to seem as if it really earned it, because quite frankly, it was not a good season. It got my lowest score, and I wanted to recognize it for all of the wrong reasons that it just did not hit the mark. So with that said, that's my top 10. Those are my 2 honorable mentions, and now it is time for my top 3. All right, guys, so it's my top 3 now. These are the shows that I do believe was the 3 strongest shows that I watched this season. And if you've kind of listened to how I've been sounding the last couple of reactions, these top 3 shows probably will not come as any surprise. So coming in right at number 3, and I was pretty confident it was going to be number 2, but unfortunately there was a show that beat it out, just edged it out at the end. So in number 3, it is the A1 original picture production, Lycoris Recoil, which also was my top original anime of the summer season. I mean, there's not really much negative I can say about this series. Obviously, you see I gave it a 9 out of 10, but that was only because of Majima's reasons for why he was doing the things. Kind of got just a little bit sloppy from a story standpoint at the end. It was still engaging, but I do feel that there was just a little more that I wanted. Obviously, I still had quite a bit of questions about the Lilybell and the male versions of the Lycorises, and what their background is, what their story is. And these were things that I think if we had gotten a little bit more, I definitely could have seen myself giving Lycoris a 10. Alas, regardless of that though, it was still a highly incredible and enjoyable show. It was incredibly popping on screen. The fight sequences were great. The trigger discipline was great. Takana and Chisato's relationship throughout this season was absolutely superb. I love those girls dearly. I love the recognition and the representation that I got with having Mika, having, such a, having a very important black character that was in the show. It was a very big thing to me. Obviously, I know, even though it was never confirmed, to anybody, I know that just like how people were really rooting from a Yuri standpoint because of Chisato and Takana, it was also very clear that there was probably also something between Yoshi and Mika, and it just the fact that they really tackled several elements when it came to LGBTQ type elements here. I think that they did those really well too. It wasn't perfect, but I think they did it really well, and it did help this show attract a more wider range of audience. So this was a really well done show. Claris really did knock out the opening song. Absolutely loved it. And really there was not a whole lot of negatives that I could say about the show. So I did ultimately give Licorice a 9 out of 10, an incredibly strong 9 out of 10. It was the strongest of the 9 out of 10 shows that I gave this season, and it is in my number 3 spot. Coming in number 2 was another late watch, and one that I only had watched within the last month, and when I got to the end, I realized I had watched a near masterpiece. Summertime Rendering and the journey of basically saving Ushio. That is how you do mystery, time travel, supernatural related stuff well and right. And it almost may, and I'm going to think about this over the next month or two, I could have to go back and revise my Re:Zero one and say that this show in certain ways did the time travel consequence to not consequences with that even better. The whole return by death and everything. I really was glowing about the second season of Re:Zero. I gave it a damn near perfect score. But I realized that Summertime Rendering just really executed making sure that neither side, the antagonist or the protagonist, really had an advantage over the other. You really had to be paying attention and accepting that even if you did pay attention to what you did in previous timelines, that you still may not be rewarded with success. Now, yes, we got a happy ending with this show, but we had to fight like hell for that happy ending. And the fact that I felt so passionately about that ending and the fact that we had earned getting where we got, it was a testament to how strong the story writing of this show was. This was truly a show that rode on master level story writing. And if it wasn't for marginal gripes that I had with our main antagonist at the end, I do believe I would have went ahead and gave Summertime a 10 out of 10. There are some days I wake up and I say, shit, that was a 10 out of 10. And then there's others where I'm like, there were maybe marginal issues here and there. But regardless, Summertime Rendering was an absolute feast for the eyes. It was a story of that nature and of that genre done very well, almost perfectly, and it did get a 9.5 out of 10, putting it in my number 2 spot of my top 10 list. Which brings us to the number 1 show of the season for me. And obviously, you guys have heard me talk about this show since it first started airing. And so the number 1 show comes as no surprise. That's right, guys. My number 1 of the summer 2022 season was Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun, receiving a perfect score and the only perfect score of my summer season. What's there to say? You know, the story from the very first couple of episodes of this series has been beyond captivating, gory, concerning, traumatizing, revolting, and just amazing. And, you know, I truly do believe that it takes a special type of person to write the story that the author has written for this. It is also almost unheard of for me to actually give a show with this type of premise a perfect score. But as I thought about any of the slight marginal issues that I might have had with the story and its portrayal this season, I realized that none of these issues, the whole fiasco with Riko, the whole crap fiasco, her not making the smartest decisions here and there, these were not issues that I felt really took anything away from the rating of the show because the story itself was so strong. Watching the journey of Waco and Itamui and Wazukyan and Belaf and everyone that was part of the original group and seeing it as a parallel to the story that we were watching with Riko, Reg, and Nanachi as they started their journey through the 6th layer, there just was not really anything negative that I could say. It was done incredibly well. I was incredibly satisfied with it. And it definitely, when I thought about it from an emotional standpoint, it was definitely my number one show of this season by leaps and bounds. The music, I mean, what can we say? Kevin Pinkin is an absolute masterclass. He does an absolute masterclass with the music here. The visuals were great. The fight sequences were great. And while I did not cry as much this season as I did in the movie and the first season, there was no lacking of an emotional response that it got from me. This show easily got the highest emotional response out of any of the other shows you see on my top 10 list, and I definitely believe it deserves to be recognized for being as good as it was. So with that said, guys, Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun is my number one show, and that is my top 10. So I will take a quick moment to put my top 10 and all 21 shows that I watched up on screen so you can see where they rated at. Guys, so with that said, thank you so much for watching. That is my ratings for the summer season, and with this video, not reaction, but video, this does conclude all of my videos for the summer 2022 season, which does also mean I will be saying goodbye to you guys for the next few months. So for those who have messaged and checked in and wished good wishes, thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it. For those who are not aware at this stage in the game, due to some pretty significant life events that I have to handle over the next few months, along with having to transition to a new employer, I will have to part ways with my reactions for the fall season. But guys, I want to let you guys know this fall season is stacked. Today, as I'm recording this, Chainsaw Massacre just came out. Bleach had a absolutely phenomenal return after 10 years of not being on screen. The other day, Spy X Family has started off at every bit that we could have expected to start off with, just as strong as it was in the spring season. And there's also a show called Akiba Maid War that I also want to throw in there that you guys should watch, along with other great shows that are going to be airing throughout this season. So truly, thank you guys for supporting this channel, for the almost 300 subscribers on YouTube and the many viewers that I have on other platforms that I posted these videos to. You guys are the very best. I know that not all of my reactions you might have agreed with, and I obviously as a reactor we're getting adjusted to doing this. Again, I was really great with public speaking, but this is the most that I've ever spoken in my life since I was in school. So I really just want to thank you guys for bearing in there with me, bearing there when I was going through my eye injury that I had. And yeah, I really do appreciate all the dialogue you guys exchanged and viewership that you had on my videos throughout the spring and summer season. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you can be first to be notified when I do return to doing reactions. I anticipate there will only be a 1 season delay, so I hope to see all of you guys again in the winter season. If I am back in the winter season around the middle of December, I will share a video with you all showing what shows I will be reacting to for the winter 2023 season. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Thanks for watching all of my reactions. I hope you guys take care, enjoy the fall season, take care of your bodies, take care of your health, take care of your minds, and until the next time I can join you for reactions, catch you later.